Here's a gripping introduction for your video. When I was a kid, my father had a rule. Every night, without fail, I had to do something with our dog before I went to bed. I never questioned it at first. It seemed normal, even kind of special, like a bonding ritual between me, my dad, and our loyal golden retriever, Max. But as I got older, I started to realize it wasn't normal at all. It started when I was around 7. My dad would call me into the living room right before bedtime, Max sitting obediently at his feet. "It's time," he'd say, and I'd nod, already knowing what to do. At first, I thought it was just a game. I was too young to understand the weight of it, too naive to see the signs. For years, I never questioned why my dad insisted on this routine. He had always been a quiet man, strict but fair, and when he spoke, I listened. That was just how things were in our house. My mum had left when I was little, so it was just the three of us, me, my dad, and Max. I clung to them both, desperate for stability in a world that already felt too big and uncertain. But as I got older, little details started to bother me. The way my dad would watch so intently, the way Max would sometimes hesitate, like he didn't want to do it either. And the worst part, the growing feeling in my gut that whatever was happening wasn't right. I remember one night in particular, when I was about 12. I had just come home from a friend's house where I had seen how other families treated their dogs, playing fetch, cuddling on the couch, just normal things. That night, when my dad called me over, I hesitated for the first time. "Do we have to?" I asked. The room went so quiet I could hear Max's breathing. My dad's face darkened. He didn't get angry often, but when he did, it was like a storm rolling in. Silent at first, but you could feel it coming. "It's important," he said, his voice low. "You know that." I swallowed hard and nodded. But that night, for the first time in my life, I felt afraid. Not of my dad, not of Max, but of the truth I was starting to see. The truth I had ignored for far too long. And that was the night everything changed. That night, as I sat on the floor next to Max, I felt different. The routine that had once felt normal now made my skin crawl. My hands shook as I reached out, and for the first time, I noticed how tense Max was. His ears twitched, his body stiff, like he was waiting for something, like he knew this was coming but didn't want it to. I glanced up at my dad. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. He always watched. I had never really questioned why, but now I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why was this so important to him? Why did he insist that I do this every single night? I forced myself to go through the motions, but my mind was racing. The air in the room felt thick, pressing down on me. I kept remembering how my friend's dog had jumped onto the couch beside us earlier that day, tail wagging, happy and free. Max wasn't like that. He was always calm, too calm. I had grown up thinking that was just his nature, but now I wasn't so sure. When it was over, I sat back on my heels, my heart pounding. My dad gave a short nod, satisfied, before turning off the light. "Good," he said. "Now get to bed." I hesitated. "Dad, why do we do this?" He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, staring at me, like he was deciding whether or not to tell me something. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "Because it's what we do." That was it. No explanation, no reassurance. Just those 4 words, like they were supposed to mean something. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept thinking about all the little things I had ignored over the years. The way my dad had trained Max, the way he never let me break the routine, the way Max sometimes looked at me like he was waiting for me to understand something I wasn't seeing. The next morning, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers. I started paying closer attention, watching my dad the way he had always watched me. I asked small questions, testing the waters, and the more I looked, the more I saw. And what I found out changed everything. The more I paid attention, the more I noticed things that had never seemed strange before. My dad never let anyone else take care of Max, not the neighbours, not even the vet, unless he was in the room. If I ever stayed at a friend's house, he'd call me, reminding me to come home early. And every night, no matter what, the routine continued. One afternoon, I decided to test something. I waited until my dad went to the store and called Max over. He came, tail wagging slightly, but there was something in his eyes, hesitation, like he wasn't sure what I wanted from him. I reached out, running my hand down his back, feeling the warmth of his fur. "You don't like it, do you?" I whispered. Max whined softly, lowering his head. It sent a chill through me. Could dogs feel fear the way people did? Could they understand when something wasn't right? That night, I tried to break the routine. My dad called me into the living room like always, but I stayed frozen in my bedroom doorway. My heart pounded. I had never disobeyed him before. I could hear Max shifting on the floor, waiting. My dad's voice came sharp and low. "Come here." I swallowed hard. "Why does it have to be me?" My voice barely came out. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, for the first time, I saw something in his face. Something I had never seen before. Not anger, not frustration, but fear. And in that moment, I realized my dad wasn't just making me do this. He needed me to. And I was finally starting to understand why. My dad didn't say anything for a long time. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Max let out a quiet whimper, shifting on his paws like he could sense the tension. My dad's eyes flicked toward him, then back to me. Something unspoken passed between us, something I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. Then, finally, he spoke. "It has to be you," he said, his voice steady but hollow. "You don't get to question that." I could feel my pulse in my throat. Every instinct told me to just go along with it, to not push any further. But I couldn't, not anymore. "Why?" I asked again, my voice stronger this time. "What happens if I don't?" His jaw tightened. He took a slow breath, like he was deciding how much to tell me. "You don't want to find out," he finally said. The room felt smaller, the air too heavy to breathe. I had spent my whole life trusting him, never thinking to question the rules he set. But now, standing there, staring at the man who had raised me, I felt like I didn't know him at all. Max let out another soft whimper, pressing his body against my leg. It was the first time I realized that maybe he had been scared all along. I glanced down at him, then back up at my dad. "I'm not doing it," I said. The words barely left my mouth before my dad took a step forward. His eyes darkened, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "You don't understand," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. "If you stop now, something bad will happen." And deep down, I knew he wasn't lying. My dad's words hung in the air, heavier than anything he had ever said to me before. Something bad will happen. His voice wasn't just a warning, it was almost desperate. I had never seen him like this, never heard that kind of fear in his tone, and that scared me more than anything. Max pressed closer to me, his body trembling. I had spent so long thinking of him as just a dog, but now I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew more than I did, that he had been waiting for me to figure it out. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" I asked. "What's going to happen?" My dad took another step forward, his fists tightening at his sides. His eyes darted toward Max, then back to me. "You don't understand," he muttered, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. "It's not about me. It's about you and him." A chill ran down my spine. What does Max have to do with this? My voice came out unsteady, but I forced myself to hold my ground. My dad opened his mouth like he was about to answer, but then Max did something I had never seen before. He growled. Low, deep, almost a warning. His body tensed and his ears flattened against his head. It wasn't fear this time, it was something else, something protective. My dad froze. His expression flickered. Fear, guilt, something else I couldn't place. He took a slow step back. "Don't," he whispered. But Max didn't stop. His growl deepened, his muscles coiled like he was ready to lunge. I had never seen him act this way toward my dad, never. And then, without warning, Max turned, shoving his body against me, pushing me back. It wasn't an attack. It was like he was trying to move me, to get me away from my dad. My back hit the wall, and Max stood in front of me, his stance rigid, blocking me. My dad's breathing grew uneven. His hands shook slightly, and for the first time, I saw real panic in his eyes. "This isn't supposed to happen," he muttered under his breath. "Not yet." Not yet? Everything in me screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. My mind was spinning, trying to put the pieces together, but nothing made sense. And then my dad did something that made my stomach drop. He took another step back and reached for the light switch. "Close your eyes," he said. But before I could even react, the room was plunged into darkness. The darkness swallowed the room, and for a moment, everything was still. I couldn't see my dad. I couldn't see Max. All I could hear was my own breathing, shallow and uneven, and the faint hum of the house settling. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. Then Max moved. I felt him press against my legs, his fur warm and grounding. He was still protecting me. I reached down instinctively, gripping his collar as if that would keep me safe. A sound came from the other side of the room, a shuffle, then a low whisper. "My dad." "You shouldn't have stopped," he murmured. "You don't know what you've done." Something was off. His voice was different, strained in a way I had never heard before, the fear that had been in his eyes moments ago. It wasn't just about me refusing, it was about what came next. Max let out a sharp bark, the kind I had never heard from him before, and suddenly the air around us seemed to shift. A strange pressure settled over the room, heavy and suffocating, like something unseen had just arrived. I felt it, even though I couldn't explain it. Then my dad let out a choked sound, like he was gasping for air. "It's here," he rasped. Max lunged. I felt him jerk forward, the force nearly knocking me over. A crash echoed through the room, followed by my dad's sharp cry. I scrambled backward, my hands searching for the door. My fingers found the knob, twisting desperately, but it wouldn't budge. Another crash. My dad shouted, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was fear. Real, raw fear. "Turn the light back on," he yelled. "Now!" My fingers fumbled along the wall, finally finding the switch. I flipped it up. The light flooded the room. My dad was on the floor, breathing hard, his hands clutching his chest like something had knocked the wind out of him. Max stood over him, teeth bared, his body trembling with tension. But there was nothing else, no shadow, no figure, nothing to explain what had just happened. My dad's eyes darted to me, filled with something I had never seen before. Defeat. "You broke the pattern," he whispered. "Now I can't stop it." I didn't understand. I didn't know what it was, but I knew one thing. Whatever my dad had been afraid of, it was real. And now it was coming. My dad didn't move at first. He just lay there, staring past me, like he was waiting for something. Max stayed where he was, standing guard, his body tense, ears pinned back. The room felt too quiet, too still, like something had just left, or was still hiding, watching. I stepped forward carefully. "Dad," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What was that?" He turned his head slowly, his breathing still uneven. His face was pale, sweat beading along his forehead. "I tried to protect you," he muttered. "I thought if we followed the rules, it wouldn't come for you." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. What wouldn't come for me? He didn't answer right away. His gaze flicked toward Max, then back to me. "It was never about the dog," he said finally. "It was about you." I shook my head, trying to make sense of his words. "What do you mean?" He sat up with a groan, rubbing his chest like he was struggling to catch his breath. "When you were little, Something happened. I don't know how, I don't know why, but from the moment you could walk, I knew something was attached to you, something that shouldn't have been. I felt my stomach twist. Attached? His eyes darkened. I thought I found a way to keep it away. The routine, the rules. They weren't just for Max. They were for you. As long as you did it every night, it wouldn't take you. The room felt like it was closing in. My mind spun, trying to fit the pieces together. All these years, I thought it was just some strange habit, some unnecessary rule my dad forced on me. But he had been afraid that if we ever stopped, something would come back for me. And now I had broken it. I swallowed hard. So what happens now? My dad didn't answer. He just looked at me, his expression unreadable. Then Max let out a soft whine and nudged my hand, his warm, steady presence grounding me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sure what came next. But I knew one thing. Whatever had been watching, waiting, it knew the rules were broken, and it wasn't done with me yet.